Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Good. So good morning, good afternoon to all of you. Welcome in this webinar, and thank you for participating. And I wanted just to introduce a few words about this session on inclusive recycling businesses in developing countries. This webinar is part of a series to present the content of the e-waste challenge massive open online course, the MOOC, and it is also to invite you to participate and read and follow the MOOC. The MOOC is a course online available to all, which you can take at your own pace. It is divided in 5 courses, and you can take each at a time or independently each of them, depending on your needs, on your background, and also on your interest. And this MOOC has been developed as a cooperation between the EIT Climate Kick, the World Resources Forum, which is represented today by Sonia Valdivia, and which is also a main contributor for course 5 of the MOOC on inclusive recycling, and also other partners like, for example, the EIT Climate Kick, the EIT Raw Materials Academy, Kew Leuven, the ITU, WHO, and of course also the World Resources Forum, together with the BRS Secretariat. Today, for this course, for this session, I have the pleasure of introducing Sonia Valdivia. Sonia is a Program Management Officer at the World Resources Forum since 2014, and she's working on the areas of sustainable recycling industries and life cycle management. Before, she was a program officer at the UNEP Division of Technology, Industry and Economics, and she has been coordinating the secretariat of the UNEP SETAC Life Cycle Initiative. She has a PhD in environmental waste management and policies from the Technical University of Karlsruhe, and has worked for organizations such as UNITAR, NASEC, INE, and GIZ as a coordinator of the Pan American Network for Environmental Waste Management. And you will know and learn more about Sonia if you read the profile on the announcement. And as last thing, before I give the floor to Sonia, I wanted to share with you that this webinar is also taking place in the context of the International E-Waste Day, and the celebrations for this day. This celebration is coordinated by the WE Forum, and we are honored to participate to all the events that took place in the 2 weeks around the date. It was the 14th of October, and also with this webinar. So now, without taking more time, I would like to pass the floor to Sonia for her presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for attending this webinar. And first of all, thank you, Francesca, for this nice introduction, and Dan for supporting with an excellent webinar that we are now attending. I feel very honored to have shared with these organizations the development of the MOOC. Francesca already mentioned them. Under the umbrella of the Basel Convention Secretariat and the United Nations Environment Program. It has been a very enriching experience. I will introduce to you in a summary about the e-waste challenge MOOC, and after that I will go into more detail, introducing the MOOC number 5, or the session number 5, that is about sustainable and inclusive e-waste recycling in developing countries. So this MOOC was developed in cooperation, in close joint cooperation with organizations that were mentioned, and we shared priorities that are at our heart, we covered through this MOOC areas on environmental sound management of hazardous chemicals and waste, also the cleaner production processes related to e-waste management, for example, or e-waste or waste related to the electronics sector. We also covered protection of human health related issues around the communities and workers in these value chains, and aspects around the design, circular economy, mitigation, and adaptation activities in order to lower the impacts on climate change and natural resources. So these are the shared priorities of the organizations that led us to envision this work together. We probably know, most of us, I mean the persons present in this webinar, what is waste. We live with these products every day, and we use them, but also probably we have some e-waste with us. Maybe just remember or try to check how many of us have at least one or two old mobiles in our drawers. So without intention, we have e-waste in our activities. And this is a growing waste stream worldwide that needs to be addressed. And why? Because there are risks and opportunities. E-waste contains hazardous substances during the production of the electronics, where substances used, but during the management of these waste streams, especially under uncontrolled practices. Emissions are released with detrimental impacts to the environment and health-related issues for the workers or persons around these activities. This is the fastest growing waste stream worldwide, and not only in industrialized but also in developing countries. This is a very important characteristic of this waste stream. But on the other hand, we also have opportunities, because we are recognizing, we are now clearer that e-waste contains valuable materials. In some legislations, they are also classified, some of them, as critical materials. So they include gold, silver, copper, platinum, rare metals, and so on. And this lead us to potential and profitable business models around the waste management of e-waste. So, next slide. So, and for whom is foreseeing this MOOC? Which is the target audience? And I've seen in the list of persons present in this video conferencing, we have different sectors aligned to this work, and they include e-waste recycling managers, so technical people, operators that are handling these materials, policymakers that are addressing issues in regulations, in normative requirements in countries, which are very important to support a more sustainable management of this waste. Also, students, researchers in all over the world. So it's a cross-cutting area that is now getting a lot of momentum in many research centers and organizations. And healthcare operators, because as I mentioned, there are health-related issues, and they are serious and need to be taken into account. This MOOC is online, available, and although, well, it's foreseen a number of hours for completing the series, it depends actually on your background. If you are expert in one or the other topic, you probably could resume this session and minimize the time you are investing on it or you're attending it. So this is only an estimate average of hours that you would need to attend it, 35 hours. Can be less, and also it depends on how deep you look into the materials that are linked to the MOOC. So references, there are even tests and quizzes that are very, very simple, very consistent with the topics that are being illustrated. So this can be taken anytime. And also another characteristic is that you can start with a session that comes later and go back to the first one depending on your interest. So this is very flexible. And the platform is available, as you know. Have received the web link, and the 5 MOOCs sessions are part of this book. 1 and 2 provides the background so that you can increase or confirm your understanding on the trends, on the overall situation of the challenges around this e-waste, and in session number 3, there will be more specific issues around children and health aspects. Also, the situation of child labor is tackled with in this session, and some recommendations and aspects that need to be taken into account when working with value chains, informal ones, for example, that may engage children in their works. In session 4, it's very technical and related to business models and to recommendations for improving the practices. From the business perspective, there you have references to standards, to policy recommendations, to design aspects. So this is a very interesting one, especially for technical people, recycling managers that need guidance or some references. And session number 5, which is the one I'm going to present in more detail, is about inclusive and sustainable e-waste recycling. This is especially focusing on value chains in developing countries where you have a number of economic operators that we say belong to the informal sector, for example, or are individuals that do it to subsist. So they are economic subsistence activities. So not really under proper regulation, or they are not their activities are not controlled and following standards, and this is a challenge in the value chain. So with this, I presented in a nutshell what the MOOC is about, and I encourage you to visit it and to go through the references to the different parts, and I think you will enjoy it. So please go ahead with this experience. Now, if I may continue with the next presentation, that is about session number 5. I understand that the questions will be at the end of the presentation. So, sustainable and inclusive e-waste recycling in developing countries, session number 5. This was led by my organization, the World Resources Forum, which is an independent, non-profit international organization that serves as a platform for connecting different types of stakeholders from the business side, policymakers, NGOs, scientists, and the public in general, in order to foster knowledge exchange on resources management. Also, for your information, our activities are implemented in different regions of the world. We focus on Africa and Latin America, and our next conference will take place next year in Ghana. You are welcome. In this presentation, or in this MOOC, I would say what we aim is to improve understanding on the role of the informal sector and on the worst practices that are happening in value chains where you have non-controlled practices. So impacts around them need to be understood, but also the good practices. How to move from the worst to good practices is extremely relevant in this value chain. We also aimed to provide, to explain about the ISO framework that has been developed for the sustainable inclusive management of secondary metals. This is based on the ISO standard ISO IWA 19 that is available. And of course, at the end, I will complement the presentation on explaining how we, as the Sustainable Recycling Industries Program, are contributing to implement these measures and these tools and approaches. We already saw the electronic waste and the challenges of managing nowadays. Very interesting facts are the following. 2% of the poorest people live from waste recycling, notably in developing countries, of course. And this is very critical. I mean, a very high number considering the total amount of the population. And these people are mostly in the formal sector, which relates to the next fact. 90% of waste is recycled without any control. So practices that are not following the standards, which means unintended consequences, impacts to health, impacts to the environment are resulting from these non-controlled practices. So this is very important to be tackled with, and in this regard, we, through the work through what we are presenting in the MOOC in session 5, the guidance is around aiming to control conditions and avoid environmental threats, such as environmental pollution, health hazards, and cross-contamination. Environmental pollution, we see this very often in developing countries in open dumping sites. That is actually the illegal dumping sites where e-waste is burned to recover the materials, such as metals, valuable materials that are there. And this is originating major chemical substances, such as dioxins, for example. But also the health hazards aspect, now, for example, related to the leaching of some components in order to extract valuable materials. In this case, it would be gold. No? And there is also cross-contamination related to the chemical substances. Lead is one example that is present in plastics, and which often is above the thresholds, the legal requirements. So there are also social threats, and child labor is present. I have been researching on a number of value chains and in informal collection, and in some disassembling activities in developing countries, children are still engaged. This is a critical issue that needs to be tackled with urgently. But also the working conditions in general of the workers around that. Women are also part of this group of economic operators organizations, and this complements the list of social threats in the community, in the value chains. Based on that, we develop a document on worst practices to good practices that is presented in the following way. We tried to visualize, based on examples that we identified in the different countries, typical worst practices around several phases of the e-waste management, and of course, clarify the impacts of these practices to the environment, to health, related to the health, and based on that, to provide guidance and recommendations for in moving towards good practices. So this is a very nice flow where you see the examples and all from developing countries how this can be possible. We documented well the 9 worst practices that you see in this slide: poor housekeeping during collection, non-compliant trading and transportation. This is, in other words, related to illegal trading, for example, that is often in the news. Unsafe manual dismantling, low quality segregation. This fourth one is more related to the quality of the product, because by doing so, we are probably, by doing cherry picking, we are missing the chance to recover more efficiently other materials that are also valuable, but we did not recognize them, for example. Low-tech unsound melting of burning. This is what I presented before when burning the cables in order to recover the copper from cables, for example. Yes, you release a lot of dioxin emissions, you impact on the health of the people around these activities. At the end, you recover cable. So this is a very unhealthy and unsustainable practice. Amalgamation, that is the practice of using mercury to recover gold. This is still used not so much in Africa, to my knowledge. Yes, there are some isolated cases. We found it a bit more disseminated in Asia. But again, there are no official statistics about this. Other low-tech unsound chemical leaching practices, meaning through the use of other substances to recover valuable materials. Open burning and open dumping are the last options when, okay, there is waste, then we just throw them illegally, actually, and should be banned. The ones in red, amalgamation, open burning, open dumping, are practices that are illegal and to be banned immediately, we would say. While the others, depending on the legislation and on the level of severity, yes, they are in the process. Like open cable burning, this is yes to be. There are in the document you will see for each of them the specific cases where the prohibition and the banning is in place, is coming in place. And in the next slide, you will see the ISO Iowa standard that has been published that recollects these worst practices, and around a management system recommends how to implement actions and measures towards the improvement of the performance of the recycling activities. This standard has been adopted already into countries. We see here the standard in Ecuador, adopted by INEM, and in Colombia by Econtech, for example. And based on 5 principles. The first one around the working environment, so in protecting, improving the working environment. The second one on the communities, and it's about considering communities' concerns and strengthening local community relations. The third one is about the natural environment. It's about protecting and avoiding negative impacts to the natural environment. The fourth one is on quality. It aims at enhancing the quality and quantity of the materials recovered from waste by not, for example, doing cherry picking. And the fifth one is on the management system that allows continuous improvement of the practices along the time. If you have time, please, you can visit you can see our video where we explain these principles and the possible applications in cases. The structure of the ISO document is a standard, based on ISO. I would like to highlight the chapters 3 and 4. The 3 is about the sustainability requirements. This is complemented with 17 objectives. The 5 sustainability requirements that we just saw, the ones related to the environment, the local communities, etc., Each of them has objectives, related objectives, and in total we have 70 that are also very valuable because they provide you definitions, they provide you also step-by-step recommendations on how to implement them, and also depending on the economic operator concerned. The chapter number 4 is about traceability requirements, which allows you to demonstrate in a credible way the implementation of the sustainability requirements. This is based on the chain of custody approach. However, we realized there are also other approaches they are suggested, and we realized that at the beginning, value chains could start with a second-party verified approach, for example, based in a due diligence scheme, without a label, without a certification. So this is a traceability requirements approach, and to show you a bit how this looks like per principle and per objective. What you have is the gradual implementation of the steps recommended for each economic operator. When you read SA, is the acronym of subsistence activities, that means individuals or associations that are managing e-waste for subsisting. They are collecting, they are dismantling, they are aggregating, etc. At the individual level or just to subsisting groups, UBA means unofficial business activities, which are illegal ones. They do business, they are bigger teams, bigger groups with more infrastructure, but they simply evade the formal system, and there we find several examples of this, especially in big cities, or where you have a lot of waste to be managed. An OBAs means formal business activities. These are the traditional, the recycling companies we know that are participating in payback schemes, that are serving the cities and municipalities and governments in handling in this problematic at country level too. So this is about the different objectives. 17 objectives have been developed for the 5 principles, around the 5 principles. And very important is implementation of these 2 approaches, the extended producer responsibility and the responsible sourcing. With the responsible sourcing, producers can support improved waste management, sustainable and inclusive waste management, by sourcing in a more responsible way. There we are talking about, for example, public procurement programs, sustainable procurement programs that could include these criteria for sourcing. And with extended producer responsibility, we mean producers that commit to take care of the products they deliver to the market after they have been used, or when they are broken, so that there is a responsible management of them when they become waste. And the informal sector are highlighted in the collection phase and the waste processing phase, where you find most of them. Remember, we have said that 2% of people, of poorest people, live from e-waste. This is about these people, and they process 90%. They recycle 90% of waste as an average, of course. Some countries is more and less. So this is crucial in this context. We have implemented this approach through pilot testing in our country partners, such as Ghana, South Africa, Peru, Colombia, and Ecuador too. We have a report on this pilot study available in the website if you are interested. And our next steps, we are working on upscaling the implementation of this standard for inclusive and sustainable recycling through the development of an international standard under ISO, Technical Committees 207 on Environmental Management System and TC 323 on Circular Economy. So the activities will be kicked off in January next year. So I think this is in a nutshell what we have developed for upscaling, for disseminating sustainable and inclusive recycling. And as Sustainable Recycling Industries program, we are contributing and going beyond our activities with the support of the Swiss State Secretariat of Economic Affairs, which provides the funding to implement these activities, and they are implemented in cooperation with the Swiss Federal Laboratories for Materials, Science and Technology, EMPA. We have been working over 15 years in this area, and especially results and the impact is seen in the countries partnering in our project. This program runs until 2023. Our activities focus on policy developments, policy guidance, advisory support on policy issues, on normative requirements, so at more technical level, for example, for a level playing field, on the business models area in order to support the professionalization of this sector through vocational centers, for example. This has been working very well in the countries. And problematic fractions. This means focusing on the fractions that are very critical, that need urgent attention for the safe treatment, for their safe treatment, and also for minimizing and preventing health impacts and severe impacts to the environment. We also have the international exchange through a global platform on sustainable recycling industries, and you are welcome, invited to join. Our final aim is to produce global public goods. So the concrete impacts will be seen in 3 years' time in our partner countries, Ghana, South Africa, Egypt, Colombia, and Peru. And this leverage, at last but not least, our program leverages that concept of a circular economy and contributes to actions on climate change and the sustainable development goals. So this is at the core of our activities. Thank you very much. And I am here at your disposal for any questions you may have.